So the Chinese leader Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, the Russian leader, showing a united front in Russia's standoff with Ukraine. And we're seeing no signs of de-escalation. Michael Waltz, Republican out of Florida, member of the House Armed Services Committee. Sir, good day to you. It looks like Putin's going to go to Beijing for the games in early February. So the world is literally choosing sides as we sit here today. You were just in Ukraine. What did you learn about the potential and possibility of Russia having action there in the Eastern Front?
Well, we have to appreciate that we're on the verge of possibly seeing the largest land invasion in Europe since World War II. Russia has hundreds of thousands of its soldiers massed on the Ukrainian border. Cyber attacks are increasing on their electrical grid. The Ukrainians are, as you can imagine, incredibly worried, and we're just not seeing the same sense of urgency out of the White House here. Instead, a $200 million lethal aid package is sitting on President Biden's desk. And folks, I think they're taking the same flawed approach that they took in 2014, where it's, they don't want to antagonize the Russians. They don't want to provoke. But instead, that perceived weakness and inaction and indecision is doing the exact opposite.
Well, interesting. John Kirby from the Pentagon was with me and Dana here in New York yesterday. And on that topic, he said, we went forward with the $60 million in aid that was passed over the summer, and that money continues to go to Ukraine as of this past October. Now, on a different front, we asked Kirby about Afghanistan and the number of Americans that were said to be there. Turned out how many more there actually were there and what their status is of getting out. Here's how the exchange went.
The number was a bit of a moving target. What I think is encouraging, though, is that now almost 1,000 since August 31st, since we left, have been brought out, and we're continuing to look for others that want to go.
The problem with the number is that you were off by 90%.
Well, again, it's not a science, Bill. It's not like they register, on some sort of list that we just have that's static and permanent.
So how do we get the 90% number? We get it because we were told there are between 100 and 200 Americans there left behind, and there were 1,000. That's not even close. Congressman, you still with me?
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. Look, I got to be honest with you.
Because you have been working day and night to help the people who helped us in that country. Continue.
I have to be honest with you. I find that kind of spin and disingenuousness just disgusting. And thank God for these veterans groups who have stepped up to do what their government should have been doing. But you notice from President Biden to Kirby to across his cabinet, Anthony Blinken, they've constantly said there are so many Americans left behind of those that wanted to leave. And they put that caveat in there, and that's given them this wiggle room. Find me an American that didn't want to leave. The reality is they didn't want to leave their families behind, and it was unclear their family status. I don't think Kirby or Blinken or anyone else would have left their family behind in a Taliban-controlled country. But he's not even getting to green card holders, legal permanent residents. They've admitted the majority of the SIV holders were left behind. And I can't tell you how many veterans who have reached out to me and just said they've never been more disheartened and disgusted with their own government, and the State Department in particular, that they're finding is more a part of the problem than helping them with the solution.
And the thousands of special forces that we trained in Afghanistan who helped us quickly here. You helped a person by the name of Alwyn Cash get a Medal of Honor. How did that come about?
So, well, I worked with Representative Stephanie Murphy. This was a bipartisan effort to get the legislation through last year for Sergeant Cash to receive the Medal of Honor for running into a burning vehicle, even though his own uniform was soaked with fuel, and literally caught fire while pulling out all of his soldiers. Several of them died, but several of them lived. And to the very end, he refused care and was asking about his men. And just this is a day to celebrate the best of America. And no one there at this Medal of Honor ceremony cares about black, white, or brown, or Republican or Democrat. We're all just fellow Americans. And this man in particular died and gave his life for his soldiers. He'll be celebrated along with a Green Beret and a Ranger who did the same and gave the ultimate sacrifice so we could wake up breathing free air. Well, and it's just my honor to be a part of it.
Amen to that. Thank you, sir, for sharing that story. We'll talk soon. Michael Waltz, thank you, from Florida. Dana.